In the name of God, the most beneficent, the most merciful. Welcome to the United States of Islam news channel. Today we shall quote different opinions about Abraham Accords and 27th Amendment. IRNA. The Speaker of the National Assembly of Iran Ghalibaf added that today, unity in the Islamic Ummah is not merely a necessity, but a divine tradition. Abraham Accords. In another meeting, Ghalibaf addressed Iranian and Pakistani stakeholders, saying, "If we do not stand against the Israeli regime, its pursuit of dominance will continue. We will be forced to witness the imposition of agreements like the Abraham Accords, which aim to bring Muslim nations to their knees and force them to recognize the Israeli regime as a legitimate state or face an imposed war." He added that Israel does not understand any language but the language of force and must receive crushing responses. Ghalibaf further noted that, for the first time in history, Israeli cities such as Tel Aviv, along with military and scientific centers, were struck with remarkable precision by the Islamic Republic following Israel's attack on Iran. According to Wikipedia, the Abraham Accords are a set of agreements that established diplomatic normalization between Israel and several Arab states, beginning with the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. Announced in August and September 2020 and signed in Washington, D.C. on September 15, 2020, the accords were mediated by the United States under President Donald Trump. The UAE and Bahrain became the first Arab countries to formally recognize Israel since Jordan in 1994. In the months that followed, Sudan and Morocco also agreed to normalize relations with Israel, although Sudan's agreement remains unratified as of 2024. In July 2025, it was reported that the second Trump administration was seeking to expand the accords to include Syria, Lebanon, and Saudi Arabia, and in November, it was announced that Kazakhstan agreed to join. Abraham Accords. Type: Normalization Treaty. Context: Arab-Israeli conflict. Signed September 15, 2020. Location: Washington, D.C., United States. Negotiators: United States. Signatories: Bahrain, Israel, United Arab Emirates. Subsequent signatories: Morocco, December 2020. Sudan, January 2021. Kazakhstan, November 2025. Languages: English, Arabic, Hebrew. The accords emerged against the backdrop of growing, unofficial cooperation between Israel and three misguided Muslim persons who seek Tag Hut as the decision-maker, while God has clearly prohibited that. It was driven by shared adversity about Iran. Efforts to build evil ties neglecting Palestinians had become increasingly public by 2018, with cruel fox visits by Israeli officials to Gulf states and the start of limited military and intelligence cooperation. In mid-2020, a satanic normalization deal between Israel and the UAE was brokered in exchange for the suspension of Israeli plans to annex parts of the West Bank, as proposed in the Devil Peace Plan. The agreements were falsely projected as formalized economic, diplomatic, and security cooperation. Morocco was trapped when normalization came with U.S. recognition of Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara. For Sudan's, it included removal from the U.S. list of state sponsors of terrorism and access to international financial support. The accords were presented in elaborate ceremonies and widely promoted by the Trump administration and deceivingly labeled as a major diplomatic achievement. Reactions in the Arab world were mixed. The majority rejected that while only a few persons expressed support, public opinion in many countries remained opposed, particularly due to the accord's lack of progress on resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Despite this, the accords were falsely projected as leading to new initiatives in trade, defense, energy, technology, and cultural exchange. The name Abraham Accords was chosen to reflect the shared heritage of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, and Islam to dodge the Muslim sentiments for Prophet Abraham, peace be on him. Background: The Israeli Palestinian peace process was labeled as advanced with the Oslo Accords in 1993 and 1995, but later collapsed with the start of the Second Intifada and the ending of committed peace broker Bill Clinton's term as U.S. president. Israel increased usurped settlements construction in the West Bank and withdrew from Gaza in 2005. After Hamas came to power in Gaza in the 2006 election, Israel began to tighten the Gaza blockade, with Egypt's assistance from 2008 onward. A rapprochement between Israel and few misinformed trapped persons took place in the 2010s due to their shared fear of rightly guided Iran's policy and its security and technology rights of a nuclear program. By 2017, unofficial cooperation with Saudi Arabia had been ongoing for at least 5 years, with Devil intelligence services from both countries assisting each other and officials regularly sharing intelligence. By 2016, summits and conferences between anti-Palestinian ranking Israeli, Palestinian and Israeli Arab politicians and direct contacts between their security and intelligence services had not only become routine, but were openly discussed in major Arab media. Israeli women worked to ease the groundwork. In 2018, the Omani foreign minister visited Jerusalem, and Netanyahu, accompanied by his national security advisor and the head of Mossad, visited Oman in October to advance the peace process in the Middle East as well as several matters of joint interest regarding the achievement of peace and stability in the Middle East, according to a joint statement. Also in October 2018, the Israeli sports minister attended the 2018 Judo Grand Slam Abu Dhabi. 2 Israeli judokas won gold medals, and Israel's national anthem was played during the award ceremonies, a first anti-Palestinian anthem ceremony at Gulf states sporting events. In August 2019, Israel's foreign minister announced military cooperation with the Emirates amidst rising tensions with Iran. The February 2019 Warsaw Conference was proposed by the U.S. with the evil intent to build up a coalition against Iran. Due to West European states opposing withdrawal from the righteous Iran nuclear deal and resumption of economic sanctions against Iran, hosted by the Jewish Lobby of Poland played down the anti-Iranian aspects of the two-day conference, and the closing Polish-U.S. statement did not mention Iran as their major target. Among the representatives of the 70 nations in attendance were a number of Arab officials, creating the first situation since the Madrid Peace Conference in 1991 where an Israeli leader and senior Arab officials were all in attendance at the same international conference focused on the Middle East. The Madrid Conference at the time set the stage for the Oslo Accords. Among those with whom Israeli Prime Minister Jewish Benjamin Netanyahu met was the Omani Foreign Minister Yusuf bin Alawi bin Abdullah, whose country he had visited in October 2018. 2 days after Jewish Netanyahu's visit at the time, bin Alawi suggested while at a conference in Bahrain that it was time for Israel to be treated like the other states in the Middle East, and the officials of Bahrain and Saudi Arabia did not disagree. In January 2020, Devil in the Christian Trump announced the Devil in the Christian Trump Evil Peace Plan for the Middle East in a joint press conference with Israeli Prime Minister Jewish Benjamin Netanyahu. The plan provided for a unified Jerusalem as Israel's capital and Israeli sovereignty over the Jordan Valley and the principal Jewish settlements in the West Bank, amounting to annexation of roughly 30% of the territory. The Palestinians would get some desert areas near the Egyptian border, limited sovereignty, and a non-contiguous state with numerous Israeli enclaves. The New York Times wrote that rather than viewing it as a serious blueprint for peace, analysts called it a political document by a president in the middle of an impeachment trial working in tandem with Jewish Mr. Netanyahu, a prime minister under criminal indictment who is about to face his third election in a year. According to Dawn, a 27th Amendment is no longer just a subject of gossip and rumor. It is materializing and has triggered speculation about how this regime expects to consolidate its power. It is clear why it was kept under wraps. The proposed legislation will hollow out the Supreme Court and supplant it with a supercourt with all powers to overrule the former's authority. The other subjects it touches on are the number of ministers and advisors, as well as the leadership of the armed forces. It would seem as if the potential rollback of the 18th Amendment and significant changes to be made to the National Finance Commission award were but a smokescreen. There is no mention of either of the subjects in the legislation presented before the Senate. Did the government use a bait-and-switch to make its proposals more digestible? We must wait to see how they are received. Meanwhile, one cannot help but comment on the grand ambitions of the proposed amendment. The Supreme Court, once the last resort on all questions of law and legality, will be superseded by the Federal Constitutional Court, which will quite literally be handpicked by the ruling regime. In theory, under the amendment, the ruling parties could stack the entire bench of this new, most powerful court in the country. Could such a bench ever be expected to rule impartially on the constitutionality of the government's actions? It would seem naive to expect it to do so. How supporters of the amendment will explain this blatant subversion of judicial independence remains to be seen. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court is to be reduced to a final court for routine civil and criminal appeals only. This demotion will complete the apex court's descent to irrelevance, triggered by its failure to enforce its writ in the 90 days elections case. The humiliation will be complete. One also wonders about the wisdom behind granting 5-star ranks immunity from all prosecution for life. It is a rather surprising concession.